four things in the Bible let's talk about today. Government, which is ordained by God. Law, which the most important ones are given by God. Revenge, we see that in an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And self-defense, we see that with the fact that Peter carried a sword. Now, government and law. We are commanded to operate under the government and under the law. And the Bible tells us that if we resist it, it won't turn out well for us. Now in Matthew 5, the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, "You have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, resist not evil. Whoever smites you on one cheek, turn the other cheek." Now, eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth is primarily a revenge doctrine. It's found, spoken of directly 3 times in the Bible. Exodus, I believe Leviticus, and then Deuteronomy. Now, Deuteronomy is it's the only one the only time it speaks directly that if someone were to lie to you, let's say in a court case, say they accused you of murder, and they were found out to be lying, then they would be put to death. Because whatever they were trying to cause to happen to you would happen to them. Life for a life. That's also part of that doctrine. But the other 2 times it's used, it's basically just an accidental event that you could require the same thing happen to that person. And if it was a life, then their life would be required. In the Bible where it talks about the cities of refuge, well, the cities of refuge were ordained or established because, let's say you kill somebody completely by accident. Well, there's this thing called the Avenger of Blood, some of their family. Well, they could kill you. That was just part of the way it worked out. So what you had to do, if you killed someone accidentally, you had to flee to the city, and you'd have a trial, and if you were found out to be innocent, then you had to stay in that city. Of course, if you were found out to be a murderer, then they would kill you. But, so you had the revenge principle, which primarily is the eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Now, Jesus said, you've heard that said, but I say to you. Now, when you look at that verse, it says that resist not evil. Now, some people have translated that to be evil person. Well, the word used for evil, and I don't have all the numbers written down, but the word used for evil is in this case is a little bit different than an evil person, someone who's evil by character, and it can just be when bad. So, and it very well could be even to say that if you were struck by accident, to turn the other cheek. See, that would go contrary to the part of revenge. But let's go a little further now. Let's talk about the law and government. And it is true that, especially during this time, they were under Roman occupation. And frankly, someone in that, as a Roman soldier, they may strike you. Well, a part of that was you were under the authority of the law. So you had 2 things going there. Whether it be an accidental hit, or whether it be we were actually hit by someone who's in authority, and having your possessions taken away. That was part of the Sermon on the Mount there. But basically, it's not talking about thugs. It's not talking about someone who has no business messing with you in the first place. Now, and back to, let's get to the law now. We've got the government, we've got the law. You can plead the protection of the law. They did, and Paul did. Paul was a Roman citizen, and when the situation arrived that he was going to be whipped one time, and he said, well, I'm a Roman citizen, and I'm not condemned. Well, they didn't do it. So by law, he was protected. Now, let's look at one more aspect of revenge, and then we'll talk about the self-defense. So then, you've got the aspect of Jesus said, and even in modern times, as Christians, as a Christian nation, we don't seek revenge. If someone kills someone close to us or kills us, then it's not our place to take revenge. It is the government's place. That's where the law kicks in. In the book of Romans, it talks about that the government that they bear a sword, and they don't bear the sword in vain. They are avenger. If someone that does evil, they take care of it. Now Peter had a sword. Now we've talked about that. Now real briefly, and I did a more extensive video on November the 3rd. It's entitled something like, "What did Jesus really mean when he told Peter that he who takes the sword shall perish?" Well, in Luke chapter 22, Jesus tells them, he says, "At first I sent you with nothing, and now by a sword, And he says, the very next verse is, it's going to happen to me as it's written, I'll be numbered with the transgressors. Now, Mark chapter 15 tells us what that means is he'll be hung between two thieves. That is the fulfillment of being numbered with the transgressors. Then we know when they were in the garden, and Peter drew his sword, and he cut the high priest's servant's ear off. And Jesus put it back on and said, put up your sword, Peter. He said, who takes the sword shall perish by the sword. He did not say he who lives by the sword. There's nothing like that. He said, who takes the sword. Now, we understand what that means is that he's not establishing some kind of doctrine where you can't defend yourself. And he just tells him, put the sword up, and he said, don't you know that I can call the angels of heaven to deliver myself. He's basically telling Peter that these people who have come to take me with swords and staves, if you draw your sword now and fight against them, you will be killed now. So put the sword up. He never told Peter to take the sword and put it in his closet. He said, put the sword back in its sheath.